Good morning and welcome to the fourth annual UAGC Research Symposium. I'm happy to present Dr. Michelle Gill. She will discuss the exploratory case study of child welfare workers' perceptions of father involvement in permanency planning for children. And it's a great honor because I served on her committee. And I welcome you, Dr. Gill. I'm very, very proud of you and happy to present the floor to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. As Dr. Billard said, she was on my committee when I recently finished my dissertation in this January. Dr. Sundstrom actually was my residency instructor. I don't know if she remembers me, but she said one thing that stuck with me throughout this entire process here at, well, it was Rockies before, here at the university, which was just graduate and then you can change the world. So I listened and followed through with that. So thank you both for giving me this opportunity today and for being a part of this journey with me. So again, my topic is the exploratory case study of child welfare workers, perception of father involvement in permanency planning for children. I am a recent graduate of the University of Arizona. Well, graduation is in May, but I'm completely done. My program was in the Department of Human Services, where I received my doctorate in human services. I am currently employed at 3 different universities as an adjunct professor. I teach a wide array of classes from trauma to family services. I am also currently employed at the Department of Child Protection and Permanency, where I investigate child abuse cases. I am also the screener for the office, which means that I am the person that all of the cases come to first before they're distributed to the workers. Something interesting about me is that I am the owner of a Caribbean digital radio station, where I also do a podcast every Wednesday night. And I also own a nonprofit organization here in New Jersey called Michelle's Foundation, where we do different events for underprivileged children in the community. To begin my presentation, children born into lower income families were often sent to different homes to learn a trade. In the 1800s to 1850s, children were sent to asylums for many reasons. Charles Loring Brace founded the New York Children's Aid Society in 1853, which was an orphan train movement. The Children's Aid Society, or CAS program, was criticized for their failure to track children who were moved from place to place. In the 1930s, as social work recognition grew, the government provided funding and supervision for destitute children. The Child Abuse and Treatment Act of 1974 was then developed. Also, the Adoption and Child Welfare Act of 1980 was developed, and also the Adoption and Safe Families Act of 1977, which is called the ASFA. My introduction is that some child welfare workers have oftentimes questioned the logic of planning for reunification with the existing family, while many are also planning for adoption as a permanency outcome. Some risk factors that have been identified for possible child maltreatment include father involvement or a negative fatherly presence in the home. Permanency planning is central to ensuring the outcomes of children who were subjected to abuse or neglect. However, fathers are noted to be the last considerations within this process. Despite race, men are often perceived as ineffective and unimportant parents. The statement of my problem was that researchers have observed that fathers in the child welfare system are not only seen as absent, but also non-existent, as non-essential and dangerous. As a result, caseworkers rarely contact them. The focus of the child welfare system is on mothers, and scholars have observed that not many interventions have been provided to fathers. It is crucial to understand the perceptions of caseworkers' attitudes towards father involvement and permanency planning to provide policymakers with recommendations for consideration and further research. The purpose of my study was a qualitative exploratory study. This was to gain an understanding of why caseworkers do or do not engage fathers in the permanency planning for their children, the barriers that caseworkers might encounter, and what strategies caseworkers use and might use to engage fathers in the permanency planning. The current study was significant as it addressed the lack of father involvement in the permanency planning within the child welfare system. Fathers are overlooked by not only permanency workers, but also by investigators and supervisors. So my research questions were basically that, are there barriers that prevent child welfare workers from including fathers in the permanency planning for their children? What barriers do child welfare workers encounter from including fathers in the permanency planning for their children? Are child welfare workers reluctant to include fathers in the permanency planning for their children? If so, why or why not? And what policies might motivate child welfare workers to engage fathers in the permanency planning for their children? So my conceptual framework were basically 3 different theories. I used gender bias theory, the family system theory, and also attachment theory. The family system theory basically says that each individual in a family plays a defining role. Removal of one can destroy the entire family system. Gender bias was basically talking about, this was developed in the 1970s to assess actions, discriminatory relationships, and behaviors based upon the gender of an individual. And attachment theory, which was broken down into 4 different levels for infants, which includes the secure attachment, avoidant attachment, anxious attachment, and disorganized attachment. Each level of attachment was associated with a fear or a bond with the parental figure. The theory was eventually expanded into also adult attachments. The 3 principles involved were the fundamental intrinsic need to be attached to someone, the balancing of emotion and fear as a means of ensuring longevity and the ability. As I stated, I did a qualitative research design, which was appropriate for exploring the meaning and quality of experiences. Semi-structured interviews were used through Zoom because we were in COVID, and I was working from home, so was my coworker, so it was just easier to do the Zoom interviews. A case design was used also, which is a comprehensive method that can be used on many different levels. The population for my study, the sample for the study was drawn from a population of child welfare workers who work with the Division of Child Protection and Permanency in the Mid-Atlantic region of the United States. I work in Essex County, which is the northern side, so they didn't want the conflict, wishing I would have gotten a wider array of participants, but my office decided that it was best for me to come out of Essex County instead of staying in the county. 17 child welfare workers from the Mid-Atlantic region were recruited to participate, which was sufficient to obtain saturation. And the rationale for focus on caseworkers was based upon 2 factors. The caseworker inclusion was supported by previous literature and the ability to obtain permission for caseworkers. And that is my presentation.
Thank you, Michelle. That was a lovely presentation. I think we're going to have some questions posted now in the chat, and I have some questions for you as well. Let me just see if there's anything in there. Okay. Yeah, please feel free to post questions in the chat or comments. So I have a few questions. During your preliminary research, as you know, I came onto your committee much later. Yes. Did you find that Bowlby's 4 stages of attachment theory was outdated and too outdated to use in your work?
I don't think so. Because I think when I started this whole process, that was the first theory that came to my head, because as a sociologist, my bachelor's degree is in sociology. As a sociologist, that is one of the theories that is always presented. And that was the first one that came to my mind when I started to do this research. So I read a lot about it. And I found, of course, it's been a long time since the theory has been done, but I did my best to pick out what was necessary for this research.
Wonderful. Okay, I think we have a few in the chat. Let me scroll back up here. How did you manage to juggle all of your professional roles while writing your dissertation?
Hi, Allison. That's a very interesting question. That is one I often get a lot by my coworkers as well. I'm not really sure. I just know that this was something that I've been working on for a long time. And initially when I started my PhD program, it wasn't at this university. It was at another one. I'm not going to call any names. And basically I was told by one of my chair that my project is crap and that it will not go anywhere. And when I started my residency here at, of course, it was the Rockies before. As I said, Dr. Sundstrom, I hope I'm saying her name, I always mess it up. She was one of my residency instructors, and she basically helped me to format exactly what it is that I was trying to do with this project. And with her help, I got through it without any issues. And also my chair, Dr. Lubier, she was amazing. Cynthia Lubier, amazing, amazing, amazing. And I think that's how I got through all of this, because anything I needed, she was there to help. And of course, Dr. Billard came in on the end, which was frightening, but she jumped on board and just, got me through this process. So I'm extremely grateful for all of it. But I think what I did was I just knew what I wanted to do. And I just got it done. Like I probably slept 2 and 3 hours a night just to make sure that I got this project done.
So sticking with that question a little bit more, what is some advice that you would give to others embarking on this journey?
I'm also a single mom to an almost 18-year-old. And I often looked at him and said that if I quit, then he'll know that quitting is a thing. And I didn't want him to feel that way about me. I will definitely say find you some positive support system, whether it's your friends or family members or even your partner. Also, when you get to your committee stage, make sure that you find someone who's interested in what you're trying to do. Cynthia Lubier was one of my instructors, and I realized that she liked what I was doing. So I stuck with her. When I asked, she said, sure, I'll do it. So those are very important things. And sleep is not something that you're going to get, but try and sleep maybe 4 or 5 hours on the weekends. But if this is something that you really want, it's worth all of it.
And I can feel your passion jump off the screen. I always have with working with you. So what is next for you with this research? Are you going to do anything to expand upon it?
I've been thinking about it. It isn't at my job right now. They are looking at it to implement it into policy and to also try to have me do some presentations with it for staff so that they get to understand that it's so important to involve fathers in the process of children. The reason that I started this initially was because I've been with the agency for 17 years and fathers were not important at all. And I just wanted to understand, like, what is it about us as caseworkers that we're not including them? So with this research, my job is basically looking at it, and they're going to implement some changes as well.
Okay, that's good. That partially answers my next question. And what do you see as the main contributions of your research for your discipline, practitioners, and or policymakers? So you already kind of got into that, but.
Okay, I think for me, because this was something that I was passionate about, I believe that it will definitely change how a lot of the system works when it comes to fathers. In my system, even if a mother is not alive, she's listed as the main person for the child, even if dad has custody. So what they're actually trying to do now is try to revamp some of the whole system on how we look at fathers and their role that they played with their children.
Okay, great. And we have some comments I'd like to read, maybe even some questions embedded. William says, as a father, my encounter with the child welfare system was court-ordered garnishment, little say in recourse, even after full payment per the order. The welfare social worker ignored the order and told me to go back to court, not her problem. Fathers have little recourse. So if you want to expand on that or comment.
Hi, William. Definitely, I so feel your pain. And I think I am one of the caseworkers who I grew up with my uncles and my dad. So for me, I see a different outlook on how men play a role in the lives of their children. Whenever I have a case with a father, I am the first one and I tell them, I did not tell you this. But, go to court, get yourself an attorney. That is so important. When you're a dad in the system, you need to have an attorney because you will be overlooked. If you go to court by yourself, you'll definitely be overlooked because we do have a lot of fathers who, while they're presented with a public defender, they turn them down. I'm often the one outside of the court saying, don't do that. You need that person to represent you because your voice needs to be heard. And I'm so sorry that you've experienced that, but that was why I decided to do this research and I stuck with it. Although I was told it was crap, I stuck with it because it's so important so that, a lot of men, that your voices are heard because these are your children too. Not that they go into foster care and then you have to fight for them, because that's another issue that we have in the system where kids go into foster care and then you have to fight to get them out while you're physically here to deal with, to provide for your children.
Very good. Yeah. And to that point, Dr. Dana Dillard says, fatherhood is so overlooked in the research. This is wonderful, Dr. Gill. Thank you for sharing. So, and I agree with her. I guess another question I have, does anyone else have any questions they'd like to post in the chat? I don't want to hog all the time. Okay, so let me see. What did you learn most about yourself while conducting this study?
I learned that I'm not a quitter because if anyone talks to Dr. Loubier, there were many times where I wanted to be like, I'm done, I'm over it, I'm not doing this anymore. But I learned that I'm not a quitter. I learned that you don't need that much sleep to function. I also learned that I am a fighter for something that I want. And I'm even still debriefing, although I was done in January, I'm still debriefing from all of this because it has been an overwhelming journey. I remember when I submitted my final manuscript and to the DSEM, to the dean, and he sent it back with, some corrections or whatever. Like I got it done in 2 days. And in his response to me was like, wow, how did you do that? Because this is just something that I knew I needed to get done and I needed to finish it. So I am extremely grateful for everyone that has been a part of this. There's also some great groups on Facebook called PhD. And I connected myself with a lot of other students who are going through this, and we've helped each other to get through. So it's really amazing.
Oh, I would have loved to support networks like that during my day. Well, if there are not any other questions, thank you, Dr. Gill. Thank you so much for your lovely presentation. Thank you, attendees, for being here. Please stick around for 4 more presentations on day 2 of our 4th annual research symposium. And the poster sessions, you're going to want to check those out as well. And yes, please stick around for the rest of the day if you can. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.